We're good to go, Joe.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for today's live session with instructors. This is taking place at one of the structured conversations hosted by the Student Affairs Assessment Leaders Group, SAL, and we are joined today with the instructors for the open course of Applying and Leading Student Affairs Assessment, course that's hosted by Colorado State University and also supported by SAL. We'll have the instructors all introduce ourselves in a minute. Do want to introduce one of the most important people on the call, Steve, who will be moderating and helping ensure some of the logistics are good to go and watching the chat for us. So say hello, Steve.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here and look forward to looking at your comments.
All right. Well, I'll introduce myself. I am Joe Levy. I'm the Executive Director of Assessment and Accreditation at National Louis University in Chicago, Illinois. And I am one of the instructors for the course. I also serve as a board member leading the Professional Development Committee in SAL.
I can go next. I'm Emily Langdon, and I am the coordinator of assessment, research, and evaluation at the University of California at Merced, the 10th campus in the UC system. And I have been working on this with this team from the beginning. I got on as an instructor. Both Joe and Ben were developers of the curriculum, so I got involved a little late in the game as the developers were handing off to the instructors. So it's been an interesting experience, and this is a new piece, this live chat, so I'm looking forward to this. And I'm looking forward to the MOOC rolling out this week.
Hey everybody, my name is Ben Andrews. I'm an academic coach at North Central University, which is in kind of a variety of areas, both student affairs and kind of across the university. Right now I serve as basically kind of like a dissertation consultant for research methodology, writing, statistics, those kind of things. So happy to be here with you, excited for the course, and excited that you're joining us today.
All right. Well, thank you all. It looks like, at least at the moment, we have almost 50 people watching, which is great. I wanted to share that as of this moment, we have about 980 students registered for the course. To give a little history about the course, this has been an effort for several years in the making. SAL started out, SAL in general, if you're not familiar with the Student Affairs Assessment Leaders Group, it's an entity that started out to provide professional development and support for student affairs assessment leaders, and recognized that some of the areas that are providing that right now are organizations that you have to pay money to join, and that can be a barrier. And so SAL is a free to join organization. And in that spirit, we realized that while we run a listserv and provide some webinar, structured conversations, and some other static resources, we didn't have a collective guide or supportive resource for assessment professionals, a playbook of sorts. And we wanted to try and fix that. And so we started out putting together a number of what we thought were essential aspects to assessment, to leading assessment work. And we developed these PDFs that kind of overviewed a section like assessment planning. It then talked about the importance of it, as well as talked about potential concerns or limitations to that, and then gave a few examples. And when we put all these things together, we thought, wow, this is such a cool resource. What are we going to do with it? Are we just going to put it on the website or link to it, or how are we going to share and have people engage with it? And we saw an opportunity to hopefully bring it to life, or we wanted to facilitate it in a way that, you know, it would be more than just words on paper, and more than just, you know, an article or a resource. And so we reached out to Colorado State University, who have been longstanding partners and have staff members engaged in SOL, because they have a handful of free open course options that they run through Canvas for their community. And we asked them if they'd be interested in hosting this course and potentially bringing this content to life. And they were thrilled and thought it was a great idea. And so we started working on that 2 years ago. And so the first course was launched in the spring of 2017. And then we did a second iteration of the course last winter around this time. And then this is now the third iteration of the course. And prior to this course, we have had a little over 4,000 people register and access the course materials. So you all are in good company with you know, adding about another 1,000 people. So it's clearly a topic of interest, and clearly something that people want to know more about. And so we're really excited to be able to provide that and bring that to life. And so I will kick it over now to Emily to talk a bit more about how the course is generally structured and how we took these PDFs and really brought them to life here.
Thanks, Joe. So we have this, you'll recognize it, you know, you'll do by module 2, you'll see, you know, okay, this is our MO. So it is familiar. And once you get into a rhythm, I think you'll have a sense of how long it takes you and what to expect. But the, every module, and there are 8, every module begins and you'll get an email that reminds you, welcome. It's, you know, we're starting down, you know, module 1, we're starting down module 2. We start with a launch page, kind of an introduction piece, and at the bottom it'll, you know, show you where you need to go. But each module includes some lecture material, some content that usually comes in a combination of PowerPoints that are narrated or some videos. There are lots of additional resources. There's a section usually in reading. So if that's something that you want to do a deeper dive, there are resources there. If you want to, there's a section we call further learning that can help enhance your, enhance the information. There are lots of links to lots of places who are doing a good job of what we're talking about, what we call campus examples. In fact, one of the improvements this time, winter 19, is additional campus examples, because that's really helpful to see. I mean, people are doing good stuff. Let's share, right? You don't have to invent the wheel. And then every module has a quiz, and every module has a discussion board, and we will leave you with a prompt, and then you hopefully will take the initiative to participate in that discussion board. You can respond to other people's comments. You can pose a question. We have a lead. One of the 3 of us is lead for each of the modules. And so we go in that week and really try to respond to the discussion questions, try to, you know, provide additional resources, or even just affirmation that, yes, this is confusing, or here's a resource that might help. So we try to respond, but as students, we're all learners, so you can respond to each other, and that's great too. Just a few enhancements, because of course we're assessment people, and so at the end of the experience, you'll be asked to provide some feedback. Trust us, we listen to that feedback, we read that, we look at that, and we have made changes. We really feel like we've come around and closed the loop and improved the MOOC. We've added more videos because that's what students felt would be most helpful, participants felt. We've added these new videos called personal takes to just, we'll see what you think about that, but we're sort of reacting to material that we've been working with for a while. The discussion boards, we've tried some different things, some different breakout discussion boards and combo discussion boards. And then, as I said, just additional campus examples. So that is sort of the structure of the course, 8 weeks, and you can do it all at once, or, you know, you can do it week by week, but we will be, as instructors, we will be monitoring the discussion boards week by week, so you can look for our responses or feedback as the 8-week MOOC unfolds. Ben, to you.
Yeah. So each module is going to be slightly different, though they're going to follow very similar structures. So we estimate about an hour of time per week per module that you might spend time going through the content. Some modules differ as far as the number or length of videos versus the text, but I think a general estimate about an hour is a fair estimate. So this may, of course, differ if you're doing this in context with your team or just individually. And so just plan accordingly. Something that's new for this year is, which is actually really exciting, is that all of the content is open to you right now. So you could theoretically today sit down and go all the way through the course in one sitting if you wanted to. That's something that's new to this session that we haven't had in the past. Now, us as instructors, we're going to still be following along kind of the week by week pattern of each module. And so you might see us pop up more on discussion boards along kind of that weekly format. We do try to engage as much as possible with you all as students in this course, and of course within our community as part of the course. I think there's going to be lively discussions there, but it may be more specifically focused in the week by week schedule for us as instructors. So suit it to your schedule. For those of you who maybe are beginning back into the semester or quarter, and maybe this is a little bit of a lighter year, or maybe it's a little bit heavier this time. Whatever it is, you can adjust that accordingly to whatever your schedule looks like. So that's kind of a general idea of what you might expect from week to week. Yeah, I think that if you complete a certain amount, and Joe, I might defer to your expertise on the statement of accomplishment, but I know that if you accomplish a certain amount of the course, you do receive a statement of accomplishment at the end of the course that kind of signifies like, hey, this is kind of your certificate that you've achieved at least a certain amount. And Joe, are you able to give maybe more specifics on that?
Yeah, so and it's a question that comes up often with students, especially towards the end of the course. But to earn the statement of accomplishment, you need to get a 75% or better on each quiz. So there is a quiz in every module except module 8, and so you have to take those and pass them, earning a score of 75% or better. You can take the quizzes up to 3 times. But yeah, if you get a 75% or better on each of the quizzes, then you will earn the statement of accomplishment. If you do that, and the way you get it too is once you've earned that score on all the quizzes in the course, there'll be this, just like one of the other module pages, there'll be a page that says like statement of accomplishment. And it's just a Google form that you fill out with your name and information that you want actually put on your statement of accomplishment. So if towards the end of the course, or maybe you race through the course early and you believe you've met all that criteria, but do not see that new module in the course, or are having issues, or just have questions and want to follow up to see where your statement is, don't hesitate to reach out and ask us, and we can look into that for you. And I think the only other thing we wanted to cover here before we give you a bit more of an overview of each of the sessions in the course is just to talk about live sessions like this. As Emily mentioned, this is the first time we've done any of these, but again, true to form and some of the feedback we've received, students were asking for more opportunities to engage beyond just the discussion board or beyond within the class. And so we have seen in our past courses that we attract people from around the world. So we know that it could be near impossible for us to offer a live session that would meet everyone's availability or schedule. Plus, we all are working professionals and have our own, full plates of things to do. But we wanted to try it out. And so this is the first year that we're offering these. And this is the first session. It's a bit of a surprise maybe for folks, since we had a funky start with the holiday yesterday and this being day 2 of the class. But we are going to, this is being recorded, and we're going to share this and post this within the course. And we have a whole discussion board set up where people can give feedback about it, as well as requests that they like the idea and that they want more of it. And within, I think we were talking about doing at least one, maybe two more. We'll see. This is a busy time of year, and we're trying to figure pieces out. But if the demand is there, we want to try and meet it for folks. So we're pretty excited to offer this, and it's nice that we have about 50 people tuning in right now, and we can. It's nice that it's on YouTube, so we can see the counts of the people watching over time. So we'll see how popular it is, and the good news is once the course is started, communication about them moving forward will be a lot easier because the course is active, and when we send out announcements, you will receive them. We can also post them in the course so people can see them. Yeah, we're looking forward to hopefully this being another way to add to the course and engage with folks. So at this point, we wanted to, because the course is open and you can work through it in any fashion and as quickly as you like, which is a good point. You don't have to necessarily go through module 1 in order to get to module 2. You can hop right to 2 and to 8 to 5 to 7. You can move around. They're not dependent on completing one for the next. So we wanted to give you a bit of an overview of what each module consists of, so that you have an idea of what you're walking into, as well as a little more than just the name description of the module. So I'll turn it over to Ben. As Emily pointed out, we each sort of take lead on different modules. So I'll turn it over to Ben, and then we'll work through sequentially 1 through 8, giving an overview.
Great, thanks, Joe. So many of you maybe have already seen some of the content in Module 1. In fact, just yesterday, all 3 of us as instructors were already seeing a number of discussion board posts, which is fantastic. So if that's you, thanks so much for already engaging and starting to start that conversation in our discussion boards. Module 1 is a general overview of assessment. For some of you who maybe are coming from assessment backgrounds, this may feel pretty foundational in its scope. For those of you who are brand new, this might give you a general idea to kind of what assessment is, what kind of questions you might ask, who should be involved, how you might go about answering those questions, those kind of things. So you might see all 3 of us as instructors hopping around the discussion board in Module 1. As we go kind of through modules 2 through 7, there may be one of us specifically focused on interacting with you in the discussion boards from then. But that's just a general overview of Module 1, which is also a general overview for the course itself. So I think that's a fair description. You'll also just want to take care to see how the further learning or other resources that you might see in Module 1 might reflect in building a toolkit over time. You do have access to these resources, but if there are any resources that particularly stand out to you that you can kind of tuck away, it's a good pattern to start at Module 1 that you might take forward. Here's something that particularly applies to my context, and so I'm going to either share this with folks or kind of just tuck it away for future use. So yeah.
And I'll talk about Module 2. That's the module where I'll fly point. In my goose analogy, this is my team of geese flying south for the winter. So I will. I'll take the lead in Module 2, and that is again, Ben talked about the first module is set up. Module 2 is some initial steps. It is basically the beginning steps of assessment planning, and there's a short video that really tries to get clear on some vocabulary. One of the things you'll find if you're an assessment person, you are frustrated maybe already, and if you're new to this, language varies from publication to publication, from campus to campus, from association to association. So just know what you're talking about and define your own terms, I think is the best advice. But we try to do that up front with a video that just gets some vocabulary right out front. And then there is a long video that goes through the 11 steps of an assessment plan. And for first timers, well, if that's 11 minutes is too long for you, here's the hot tip. In the reference material, there is a 1-pager that is the document of all of those 11 steps. And they're all on 1 page, and it is not 11 minutes long. So if you just need that as a cheat sheet, you can go straight there. If you want to hear how those are unpacked, that's what the video's for. And then the last thing, there are some there are some nice links at the end of this. I think the resources in Module 2 are helpful. There's an example of an assessment plan, and there's also an example of a template. And so if your head is reeling a little bit, look at the campus example first, because somehow seeing that grounded in a campus experience, for me anyway, makes it contextualized and helpful. And then if you think, I need to be doing this on my campus, we've provided a template for you, which is blank, but gives you the pieces. When you pull that open first, sometimes you think like, oh my gosh, I have to fill all this in. So don't get overwhelmed. Keep moving through the modules. I think that the first module, or Module 2 anyway, does a lot of ground setting, and then there's much more detail provided in the other modules. So just keep reading and keep clicking on links. Good luck.
Thanks, Emily. One thing I want to make sure and point out before I talk about Module 3 is that a bit more of the history too. But again, when we put this course together, it's an evolution of a lot of people. And so if you are on the, if you go through the course expectations and welcome pages, you'll see there's a page all about the course contributors. And you'll see that there is a laundry list of people from many institutions across the US who were all members of SAL or volunteers who, during the time which our earliest efforts to start putting content together was back in 2015. And so each of these modules had a team of people that were working on them. And then the fun task that we had as instructors is, as we were bringing this course to life, taking the PDF topical content and putting it into a course and making some activities and reflection questions. And then over time, the thing that we've been trying to do as well is both respect the content that was provided and the perspectives from many different practitioners and professionals at many different institutions, but also try to smooth it out and have a cohesive arc to this course and content. Granted, there still are topics and pieces that are presented differently from module to module, and it may feel, maybe have a little different feel, but that's also the nature of all of us. I mean, even if the three of us instructors were the ones that made all of the content, we'd even have a different feel to what we're doing. But know that this is also a representation of many other individuals. And to that point, and as Emily was mentioning, it's why we try and make sure that there's a lot of resources and examples of content, because we're not trying to present one truth or one way to do assessment. There's a lot of ways to do it. And then that speaks to even the perspectives we've received in putting the content together. So I just wanted to share a bit of that history, because that's something else that we've even struggled with in terms of how much to inject our thinking and our approach to assessment versus presenting them as options. I think we've struck a good balance of offering options and different ways to approach the content, because we know everyone does it a little differently. So hopping back in order here, Module 3 is content that I lead, and it's around consulting. And I think that's something, as we're thinking about overview and planning, then we get into this idea of consulting in the sense that as assessment professionals, often we are empowering others, faculty or staff, to be leading assessment in their area. And then our role is really to be this consultant and to help support, provide constructive criticism and feedback to help them move forward. Because while they're subject matter experts in their area, they may not be subject matter experts in assessment or have training in assessment or know the ins and outs of putting together a plan or collecting data or analyzing and interpreting it. And so this module introduces some key terms that we use throughout the course, but then also just our general terms relevant for both assessment as well as coming in from a perspective of how to consult and give feedback to other people, which may be something that maybe you know assessment, but you're not used to consulting or giving feedback to other people. So we then provide a video that is all about that and gives some considerations, some tenets and perspectives to keep in mind. And then in addition to those lecture videos, I provide a personal take where I talk a little bit about my approach and how I view consulting as being part of the assessment process, as well as how you can be successful in doing that work and the impact it can have. So that's module 3. And as we've mentioned with the other modules, we then have some further learning content that you can check out, and if you want to know more or dig deeper here, as well as quiz and discussion board.
So module 4 is all about aligning your assessment with institutional priorities. The idea that your institution, regardless of your context, has a specific focus area, maybe several, that it's really leveraging a lot of its resources towards, or maybe there's kind of new initiatives on campus. And the best assessment really aligns well with those kind of priorities. And so that module goes through some conceptual ideas behind alignment, some specific applied practice about developing a mission and a vision statement. That's really kind of the core focus of that module. And then a personal take from me about crafting good vision statements that don't end up sounding like everybody else's. And so the idea for module 4 then is really trying to look at that 30,000 foot overview in terms of what it looks not only from like your office or your specific context, but what it might look like for the administration at your school, or for just general folks in your department or your division, how you might find a united framework to move forward in assessment as you go along. And so it's an interesting one as far as kind of thinking about some conceptual ideas, but also trying to learn how to craft good mission and vision statements. If you are in a position to write those kind of statements within your context, it would be a good unit to kind of give you some tools for that. If you're maybe in the future thinking about how do I motivate employees or folks within my context, this would also be a good unit for that too. Also something you'll see in module 4 that I think also shows up in module 1, maybe some other places too, is that there's a reminder to prepare for an activity that's going to happen in module 7, which is, I wouldn't say we have like a like a capstone project or anything like that, but this is kind of the closest we get to that. And it's the idea that you sit down with someone and really talk at length about their assessment position or experience and how you might learn from them. And so you'll see these reminders throughout the course as you're preparing for module 7. Take those and try to digest them in the module. There's a reason we've reminded you along the way, because it's probably a little bit more time intensive than some of the other activities we have in some of the other modules. So just take note, and something that you might want to consider, if you feel like you have the bandwidth earlier in the course to do that activity, then you've got the opportunity to have that template already for you. So that's module 4, and something that I think connects well with some of the other ideas as you're building your assessment toolkit along the way, to think of the context about your institutional priorities too.
All right. So module 5 is me again, and this is looking at critical approaches and mindsets. And so we get a little heady here as we think about the perspective you could or should have with assessment. One of the things we do is we start off by differentiating assessment, evaluation, and research as different practices, and we talk about the similarities and the potential overlap here, but really help tease out assessment as a purpose for its purpose and practice, which is, it's actually an ongoing conversation right now. And a quick sidebar, there've been some webinars on this, as well as blogs and articles that talk about potentially these practices being the same, being completely different. And for me, it's really on a spectrum of what the work is and your experience. But anyway, feel free to engage with the video, and if you have your own perspective, chime in there. But we then get into this idea of mental models and how your mental model can shape your approach to a topic, as well as your approach to the work that you might do, and what you bring in terms of your identities and your worldview, and how that can impact the work, and how to keep that in mind when you're working with other people, and what their mindsets are, and what they're bringing to the table. We then have another video stemming from that in thinking about how to mitigate bias and limit that in our approach, because we all are inherently, we have biases and implicit judgments that we consciously or subconsciously might make, or just limitations of knowledge and experience that we have given our own lived experiences. So how can we recognize that and look to combat that in our work by pulling in other people, including diverse perspectives, including other stakeholders in the process? So that piece, the mitigating bias as well as the mental models content, really goes well together. And then what seems to be the conclusion then in terms of the content here is strategies for sharing information. And it may feel a bit like a left turn, given the differentiation of practice, then thinking of mental models and thinking of mitigating bias. But really, it goes hand in hand with this content in terms of when we're sharing information with our results or with our plans and our approach, we need to have our audiences in mind. And I say audiences plural because usually you are sharing this information with multiple people. And effective sharing is really considering their perspective and their lens and what's going to be useful and meaningful to them, and using language that they understand. So in that way, this topic explores some successful strategies and things to keep in mind when sharing assessment, but it is intentionally pulling on that other content in this module of keeping in mind your perspective, your worldview, and how that can both enhance as well as limit your approach then to sharing, and incorporating some of those strategies in your sharing to make sure that we're being mindful and ultimately, hopefully, successful in getting the word out and engaging more stakeholders.
So module 6 is something that you probably have heard a lot of conversation around. How do we use data to inform decisions? In some contexts, you might hear data-driven decisions. The debate between whether we're driving or informing decisions is a lively one. But I think that this is something that is probably going to be just a tiny, tiny, tiny touch on the tip of the iceberg as far as how do you apply the results that you get, your statistical analyses, the data that you're using, whatever you might be doing in the context of your assessment, interviews, coding, qualitative themes as well. And this specific module is going to talk about a couple concepts, the idea of what we call closing the loop, which is simply this data to decisions thing that we're talking about. That concept, how it kind of drives our assessment efforts. It's going to give a very, very tiny overview of like very, very introductory statistical things. There's so much more out there. For those of you who have some experience in that area, it'll probably feel fairly elementary. For those of you who maybe are looking for that kind of competence, I hope you check out some of the resources in that module as well, because there's so much more. Particularly, suggest Khan Academy has a whole series of videos on statistics and probability that are fantastic, and I really like them a lot. So this module is going to give you kind of a little bit of a taste of what it's like to use data to inform your decisions. Ultimately, the whole purpose of our assessment is to use the results from the assessment that we are conducting, and so that's what that module is really focused on. If you want to continue that conversation, there's, of course, I think all three of us as instructors would be happy to talk further about creative ways you might be able to go through that process, other resources, and so on and so forth. I am the point person for that module, so I'm happy to talk further about that as well. Something I forgot to mention in Module 1 is that there's a way that you can film yourself. You can record a video in the context of our discussion board. So as you're going through, maybe you already saw this if you've gone through Module 1 already, but as you're going through, take a look at the Module 1 discussion board. There's a little instruction where it says classmate introductions, where it gives you a little bit of a description on how you can do that. There's a link there as well. So check that out. If you feel like you've got a longer response, or you just want some more face time with your classmates or those of us as instructors, you're welcome to record a video of yourself in that discussion board context. So I think that covers Module 6 and also the videos from Module 1.
And so I return after several weeks off with Module 7, and the focus of Module 7 is really trying to give more information about the culture that is required on a campus or within an organization that really supports values and promotes assessment. So the idea of a culture of assessment, and there's a lot of literature out there about that. And so perhaps what feels like late in the game, you know, we give toolkits, we give handbooks, we give lots of skills. The middle modules are, I think, really good skill development. And then at Module 7, we kind of take another high altitude look at the culture. What is required in your organization, in relationships, in teams, in building allies and finding your stakeholders, and all of the people it takes to utilize all these tools that you've found and discovered and maybe developed yourself. So that's really the focus of Module 7. Ben, good job giving the big hint, which is Module 7 is when the discussion board asks you to respond to an interview that you've conducted with someone who is perhaps doing more of the assessment work, or further on in their career, or maybe at a different point in your institution. It's just an opportunity. And I think you should maybe capitalize in this. Select very carefully the person that you ask to interview. It could be an introduction to a relationship that you might need to develop on your campus, or maybe a campus across town. But the hardest part of this interview is scheduling it, getting your schedule and that person's schedule to align. So start now and think strategically and intentionally about who you might want to talk to, because it's just a great opportunity to have a conversation. And then by Module 7, you'll need to tease out some insights for your contributions to the discussion board. So we'll let you know that so that it doesn't sneak up on you. And then knowing life, it probably might sneak up on some of you anyway, and that's okay. And so that's really the focus of Module 7. The personal take that I provided in this one is really just about the idea that we present a model that really, I think, does a great job of unpacking the components of culture. But there's lots and lots of stuff out there. So if that doesn't resonate with you, you need to find some way that helps you understand how you can move forward, really developing a deep and wide campus culture around assessment that will make our work, which, you know, can be challenging. It will make our work a little less challenging if you've got the institutional culture supporting you. So that's the focus of Module 7. And then the big finish, the focus of Module 8, is really trying to wrap these things up. Module 8 has 2 videos. Ben does one on intersectionality, which is very interesting and tries to, I think, really recognize the complexity of this, and gives you just a lot of food for thought. So if you start with that one, maybe some of the things that have been marinating throughout the modules will come together for you in your thought process. And then there's a real focus on the professional development opportunities. Even just doing this MOOC, sticking with this for 8 weeks or however long it takes you to get through it, is a commitment to your own professional development. And so we introduce and remind people, if you already know about the professional development competencies, the ones around the NASPA ACPA competencies around assessment. We talk about the rubrics that are available, which is fabulous. And even the ASK standards, they're like CAS standards that are specifically for student affairs assessment folks. So it's really some nice resources there that will help you continue on this path in your own development as an assessment expert. The best part about this module, I think, is that all of these resources stay with you. So if you get to module 8 and you think, you're looking at maybe the rubric around professional development competencies, and you think, I'm not down as far down this path as I'd like to be, you can go back to the module, find those resources, and recommit to them. We ask people, what are their takeaways in the summary, in our summary survey, and we get responses that are all over the board, which I think the takeaway for me is that there's lots to learn in this, and different people learn different things. I saw on the discussion board that some people are signing up. This is their second time through. You might be in a different situation and you think, oh, that MOOC might provide just some structure for the next couple months and reminders of things that but you might need to relearn or remind yourself. So there are good examples of little nuggets in each module. And of course, in module 8, because you've signed up for becoming an assessment ally, or at least someone in the know, then we fully hope and expect that you will complete the survey, that you will provide your feedback. Know that past participants have shaped the current iteration of the MOOC, and so your 2 cents are really they're worth a lot to us. And so we hope that you will take the time to provide your takeaways, but also your suggestions for improvement, because we are open to that and we are actively implementing those improvements. And then that's it. Those are the 8 modules. You made it.
Yeah, so we hope that overview and kind of additional take on the content's helpful, and obviously folks can interact with us on the discussion boards as well as within the course for each of the respective modules. And we try and do a good job in the discussion boards and throughout to link things for people too. If we know that they're starting to get into certain content that's in another module, or if they say something of interest, and we try and be good partners in saying, oh, pay attention for that to come up again in Ben's week 6. And one of the things that I also wanted to mention about the course that we encouraged, and we put it out there in terms of the advertising for the course. So hopefully folks have seen it either on listservs or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, where we've been publicizing the course. But we encourage and have had a number of institutions use this course as structured professional development. And because it's a series, it's already set up, it's already built, it's free. You can log in, you can participate as a group. And we actually shared out a tips and tricks document that is largely crowdsourced. We asked some of the institutions that had had their staff or had a team sign up for the course, what they learned about that experience, and if they could do it again, what they might do differently. So I'll put the link in the chat here, and then also we've included it. I know I've mentioned it and shared it in the course, but if anyone has specific questions about that, or perhaps missed it in, say, the email or course communication, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. We're happy to provide that. And again, it's just another instance of how we've been using feedback from people who've gone through the course to improve the course, as well as share out resources to help in the future. And so with that, I'll pause to, one of the last things we wanted to do before we dig into some questions is just talk a little more about, and it can be brief, but from each of our perspectives, what the course means to us or what we're excited about this term. So I'll kick it to Ben to do that, to start us off.
Yeah, so I was part of the instructor team on the first run of this course, but not the second. And so I'm just excited to be back, I think, in the first part of this. I'm excited to be engaging with you all in the context of the course. Excited to be revising some of our content, well, not currently, but having revised some of our content based on prior students' feedback. One of the modules for which I'm a point person is module 4, and that's one that we've revised pretty heavily this time around. So I think it's something I'm interested in and excited for, is to see how that goes. I think that any feedback or anything from you all as you're going through that particular module, all modules, of course, we're interested in your feedback, but I'm personally interested in your experience in Module 4 and things that you think you like, things that you would change, so on and so forth, as we continue to try to aim for continuous improvement. But overall, I'm excited to be kind of back in it. I've taken a few different career turns in terms of my like environment and where I work, and so I think I'm excited to be back engaging in the student affairs assessment conversation in general.
I'll pipe up here. I always get, you know, when you listen to your own voice on your answering machine and you think, oh, is that my voice? I feel that way when I look at my face frozen on the MOOC, or when I watch my video. So, you know, in preparation for this MOOC and particularly for the live session, we created our personal takes, and just watching that and editing that is it's just, I don't know, it's stressful. But then when I looked back at the whole MOOC again, I feel there's just some really good information there. And one of the things that I would so much rather sign up for a seminar and go and talk to people than read an article. And so I feel like this is a nice mix of this. I feel like there's a lot of information, and when I need a resource, I know that I need to go find it. And so this MOOC provides that. But it also feels like it's more than just going and reading an article. It really is people engaging. We as a team of instructors, we have a blast. We meet throughout the year as we prepare the material, and we react. We have a check-in point where we, you know, we're 4 weeks in, how's it going? And so there really is kind of this people field to something that, you know, technology sometimes takes away from us. So I like this, that we're using technology to enhance relationships, and even just seeing the initial discussion board links. I was looking last night. It's like, wow, all these people, like, look at all these relationships. People work at other institutions and they are recognizing, you know, former colleagues. And so I just think that's important, that the technology really does serve our field, which is at the end of the day about people and relationships. So I get excited every time we do this. I'm not the most technical of the team. I know that might come as shocking information to people, but the technology doesn't get in the way, and that makes me excited to do this each time. But what I am trying this time around is I have some people on my campus who have signed up for it, and we're going to do this. When people were talking about how they used it on their campus as a professional development in-person opportunity, I thought, I had no idea. I thought, how cool. So I'm going to be doing that as well. So I will be participating as an instructor in the MOOC, and I will be discussing with my colleagues on my campus as their assessment coordinator what they're learning in the MOOC and how we can apply that to our campus. So I'm super excited to try that in this iteration of the MOOC. We'll see how that goes.
And for me, you know, I'm going to echo some of what Ben and Emily have said. One, to Ben's point, it's exciting to have the three of us back together again, operating as at full strength as a instruction team. And two, it's always exciting to kick things off. To Emily's point, we have meetings throughout the year as we're thinking about tweaking course content and thinking of new ideas to try with the course. And so it's always exciting when we finally get the course to launch, and then to see all the people in it. And just, it's exciting for us to see the connections they're making, but also I know for me, I see different people from different institutions, and it's fun to be able to make the connection and say, oh, I know people that work there, or, oh, I've worked with them on assessment before, they're great. Make sure to talk to your colleagues, and just watch the people go through the content. And it's also been rewarding to see folks after the course to run into them or connect with them and hear from them what they gained from the course. And for us, the whole purpose behind doing this was not to try and say we're the experts or in any way to say, you have to go through all this information. It again goes back to the mission of SAL and in putting information in the hands of the people that can use it. And so we're thrilled if maybe you don't finish the course, but you got in there and you found information that you needed and it helped you on your campus. Obviously, it's great to see the people that go all the way through, earn the statement of accomplishment and give us feedback. But at the end of the day, if we're helping you in some way, that's the most important thing. And so, I've had even people on my campus that take the course and maybe they don't finish it, but they say, oh, I really liked this one module, or I went in specifically for this, and the further learning links to other articles and books, that really helped me out. So it's exciting to see and hear about that. Although I would say, to Emily's point, we hear about that sometimes the best through the survey. So again, plugging that for the folks as you work to complete the course to make sure and fill that out at the end so that we hear from you of things that went well, things that can be improved. But then we also hear that just in passing or through emails and other forms of connections. So yeah, really excited. Third time here running the course. Made some good improvements. So looking forward to see what folks think. And so I know that, basically from here out, we were going to field questions from people. So feel free to chat any questions you might have for us. I know Steve put that out there from the group. In the meantime, I can share. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Emily. Yeah.
Jump in here quickly.
Yeah.
One other thing, I talked to some colleagues on my campus who participated in the first iteration of this, and one of the things that even if you don't have people who are on your campus taking the MOOC, we probably tell our students this, find an accountability buddy, or when you're working out, you need somebody to meet you at the gym. So this can get away from you. We know what spring semester looks like in college campuses for student affairs folks. So you might want to put yourself in some kind of a partnership where maybe you tell your supervisor you're doing this, and you try to build that into some one-on-one times of learning or opportunities. You have a colleague that you work with, and you could just find someone to connect with, so that this doesn't become this, when the email comes in and you realize that, oh no, it's a time for a new module, and you just don't see that time in your schedule. Sometimes if you have the personal connection, it will help you make time. And then of course you can always take a week off and try to, play catch up. But I think if you have an accountability buddy or a study buddy, it can make it not quite such a solo experience, and maybe create more opportunities for you to do what it takes to get it finished. So that was one thing that someone mentioned to me.
One thing I'd put out that just tends to be a common question from folks in terms of knowing who to contact or how to contact us. And what I'd say is we have a help forum that you can go into, and you can post any questions there. You can also inbox and email us through Canvas, and you can email us collectively. You can email just one of us, whichever works best. And also, the course I know started on Monday, but we have a pretty generous enrollment window. So if you're watching this right now and think, oh, this sounds pretty neat, or I want to get more of my folks on campus to sign up, you can still sign up. Actually, registration is open through most of the course. So unless, I think it's good until the beginning of March. So well into the course, you can still have people sign up. And likewise, you retain access to the materials a while after the course ends. So even if you just want to have access to the information, or know that this could be great to pair or share with people later, you don't have to try and download everything right away, because you'll have access well after the course is done. I'll pause because I see we have a question in the chat. It says, how often in your positions do student affairs professionals from other departments come to consult with you? Can you tell us more about what questions they ask and how you help them? Emily or Ben?
People on my campus who come to consult with me, or people on other campuses?
On your campus.
My whole job, I am the student affairs assessment coordinator. And so the only people I work with are my student affairs colleagues. We are a young university, and so we started out going up for initial accreditation in the 21st century, which meant we had all of our assessment expectations right in front of us. So we have assessment coordinators in every division. And my whole job is to travel around to my student affairs colleagues' offices and ask them how I can help them with their assessment plans. We do a pretty robust periodic program review. It is my job to shepherd that through. And so if they don't see me annually for their assessment plans, I show up on their doorstep every once in a while for a program review. So I do that a lot. And I'm a student affairs person who doesn't work with students anymore. So I love it when I get out in my staff colleagues in their spaces and I talk to them about their programs, and I ask them, you know, what were your intentions and how do you know you met them? I get a lot of my own student affairs needs met by helping them assess their programs. So that's all I do is work with my colleagues to improve and enhance their assessment endeavors.
I'd say when I was working in student affairs assessment, probably a little bit of a similar description as far as Emily just described, much more narrow in focus and not as much responsibility there. But some of the consultations was just working with different departments around the university to think about creating interesting assessment projects, and then learning how to implement the findings as they were finished into kind of new practice. And so, as I mentioned before, I no longer work in student affairs assessment. So my current position, I don't have those conversations anymore. But those are kind of some things I'm pulling on from prior work experience.
And I'd share, part of my job is similar to what Emily mentioned. So I oversee all institutional assessment, so both academic affairs and student affairs. And, you know, a good sign of positive culture is that I do now have student affairs professionals from other departments, you know, coming to, you know, actively seeking out support in assessment. And that's been a process, you know, to Emily's point, it is a lot of normally me going to them and checking in with them and making sure they're staying on track. And because, you know, I acknowledge that assessment is not something that necessarily is top of mind for them. You know, they have a lot of things in their area to worry about, and assessment should not be something they have to be concerned with, but more just making sure that they're being, you know, data informed in the process, and that they have evidence, and that they're being intentional in collecting that data and able to show and know how students are learning. So, you know, the follow-up question, which you all can chime in on as well, but was, you know, do we work with faculty and how to develop those relationships? Again, for me, since I oversee all assessment, I work with faculty both on academic assessment, so they're you know, building their assessment plans and assessing knowledge within the classroom. But then I also try to remind them and connect and play a connecting role for them with student affairs assessment, so that they know that student learning is happening outside of the classroom, and that they have point people and know that there is data and evidence there, so that they can consider that in their work and know of that information, and help try and bridge sometimes that communication divide that occurs across campus. And wow, we have just a minute left. So any final burning questions from folks?
I will say in the division, in the discussion board, I saw someone talking about meeting up at national conferences. And I know that one thing that Sal does is oftentimes puts out a, hey, CPA folks, hey, NASPA folks, who's out there. So it would be fun. And we can talk about that as the spring conferences approach. If people will be in the same places, it would be fun to just pick a coffee shop and meet up and get some face-to-face. I know that I'm going to NASPA because it's in Los Angeles, and I'll be sure to be there. But we could talk about that more, opportunities to meet up at conferences, and also the kinds of assessment specific conferences that exist. They're great deep dives into kind of a, if you're interested in doing more, those are opportunities. And oftentimes people who are learning and getting kind of tooled on assessment end up there. So some of your participants in this MOOC might end up at some of the conferences. So we can even facilitate that at the tail end of the MOOC if that's helpful.
Okay, so we want to honor everyone's time and in our own time and look to wrap up here. Jill, I saw that you posed a question. Happy to follow up with you more about that offline or within the course. Reach out because you're asking about the use of technology to assist with assessment. I think there's a lot to unpack there in terms of what type of technology for what purposes, and keeping in mind that technology is always a tool, not a solution. And so, yeah, there's a lot to be said there. So feel free to follow up with us with some more specifics, and we can give you some more detail and hopefully help answer your question and help you out. But thank you all for joining. We'll share this recorded link out to everyone that signed up, and then we'll also post it in the course so that other students can see it if they couldn't make it live. Please give feedback on this as well as the course in general. And if folks found this helpful or beneficial, please let us know so that then we can look to plan to do more. If this was not helpful in any way, that's unfortunate, but we'd appreciate any feedback so that we can hopefully make them more beneficial for the future. Thank you all for joining. And that's it for today. Good luck in week 1 of the course.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Take care. Happy learning.